everyone, it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets and welcome to another crafty video. So this video is going to feature these two cards and I'm going to talk about how I created them from the same sketch. So if you saw my video a few ones back on my YouTube channel, you'll notice that one of the challenges I decided that I wanted to do was a Christmas sketch challenge. So I went over to Pinterest and I created a sketch challenge board, and once I had a bunch of sketches pinned, I actually drew them out in my little sketchbook, and then I took my Christmas stamp sets that I gathered all in one basket and drew out some ideas of some cards that I wanted to create. So my challenge for myself was to take one sketch and turn it into two completely different cards, either using the same stamp sets, same colors, mixing manufacturers, doing a little bit different each time, doing a little bit of a different challenge. So the first one was basically using the same colors on the sketch, but creating two totally different feels. So this is the original sketch. As you can see, there's some pennants and a banner down at the bottom, and these are my two very, very rough sketches. So the first one we're going to focus on is this one. This was the top drawing, which obviously doesn't really look a lot like it. But when I pin something for sketches, for like a card that I like, I use it as inspiration or a jumping off point, whether it's the color combination, a stamp set that I really want to use, a layout that I like. I don't like to copy the card. Like I said, it's just an inspiration jumping off point. So to create this one, I took a piece of 8.5 by 11 regular 65-pound Recollections cardstock and cut it down the middle. So you have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 top folding card. The next thing that I did was I took this circle die from Simon Says, I believe this is from Simon Says Stamp, and I used my 110 or 120 pound Recollections cardstock and cut out the circles. Now the original plan, when I was thinking this up, I was going to take the white cardstock and cut it 3 different times. However, when you line these up, they don't really fit because of the outer edge, and it actually left a little bit of an indentation on the paper, and I didn't like the way it cut out. So I decided to change things up and use the circles. This is why I never go with exactly what I have sketched out, because it never turns out that way. So kind of changed gears and just used the back circles. Then I took this Sunny Studio Blissful Baking stamp set and used the more medium-sized images to stamp out the images on my circles. I used My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink to stamp all of them out, and I used the thicker paper because it's better for Copics, and I also used the Extreme Black ink because that's a Copic-friendly ink. So generally, you want to give your images time to dry, because even though the Extreme Black ink is Copic friendly, I either let it dry for a little while or hit it with my heat tool if I want to color right away, or especially if I have a lot of images. But by the time I stamped out the very last image, I kind of did it in this order too. I colored the first one and then the second one, and I went on as I went on, and the eggs were the last ones I did because those were the last ones I stamped. So by the time I got to the eggs, everything was dry. So I used a combination of Copic markers. So for the spoon, I used E34 and E97. For all of the red images, I used R27 and R46. All of the green images, I used G16 and G28. The gray and silver images, and even in the eggs and in the pastry bag, I used N0. And then for the spatula, I actually used C1 and C3. And then for the butter, I used Y00. Now the greens and reds are the same ones that I used in the other cards, so we won't talk about them again. That was kind of how I tied the two cards together. The reds and the greens are the exact same colors on both images. So once I glued I wanted to glue these down, but then I realized that the background looked really, really plain. So I went through a pack of old Recollections cardstock that I had. It was an old Christmas pack. It's one of those like 48 count papers where you get 2 or 3 of each kind. They're very, very thin, so they make good layering pieces. So I cut it 1/4 inch shorter on all sides than the card base, glued that down, and then glued my images down. Now the last thing I needed was a banner. If you notice, this one has a banner at the bottom. So I decided to go ahead and use that. And I did a sentiment from the Sunny Studios Blissful Baking stamp set saying, wishing you a sweet Christmas. Because I thought that went really nicely with the baking ingredients on there. So actually the one thing that I did before I glued on the images down, 2 things actually, I used some Distress Oxide in Lucky Clover, and I stamped the jimmies, or like pretty much everyone else calls them, sprinkles, out into the shaker, and then I went around all of the edges with the Lucky Clover for the images and then for the sentiment. This was a happy accident because when I was actually working on the second card, I placed my ink blending tool down and it fell off, and it actually went onto the corner of the sugar bag one, and it actually looked really good. It made it stand out a little bit from the background. So that was the creation of this card. And then we move on to this card. So you'll notice this one's a little bit different, that what you would consider the banner piece is up at the top. So the sentiment banner, whatever, is up at the top. And then I moved everything down a little bit. So it's kind of like it's upside down versus the sketch. So that's another way you can change things up. Just because it's in one orientation doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it has to be. You can take elements and move them around. It's still inspired by the sketch, and you can still tell that this derived from that sketch. And these two, if you look at this, they're similar. You can tell that they came from the same sketch. So, all right, now I took I did 2 different sets of tags. If you look here, these are ones that were free with 60 MFT tags, and I don't really think I've ever used them. So I used the one with the double stitch at the bottom, and then the other one has stitching all around. The stamp set that I used was from Mama Elephant, and it is the Block Party letters. So I thought these would look really cool because they, oops, upside down, sorry guys, because they have like a little shadow behind it. So what I did was I colored with the lighter color in front, and then kind of did the inside with the darker color, and then blended it out with the lighter color. So it is really just 2 colors of Copic markers on here, but they have some dimension, the letters have some dimension to them. Around the edges is Fired Brick Distress Oxide. So that's a new color. That's something that was not in the other one. And just because I did the trees in the background of this one in the Lucky Clover Distress ink, I didn't want to put green on top of green because then it really wouldn't stand out. So I did the red behind it. I probably would have gone with a more Christmassy red if I decided to do that again. This one is a little bit too much of an orangey red for the actual project. So I used the MFT, let's see, this one usually has the name on here. Oh, In the Woods stencil. So what I did was I put it down, and then I inked up over all of it with the Lucky Clover Distress ink, and then I went and then actually did it at the bottom, because if you look, it doesn't, if you line this up, it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of the card, and there was a blank space at the bottom. So I just took it and lined it up with the last set of trees and was able to get another partial row of trees at the bottom. That's a great trick for when you need to finish something off, and maybe your stencils, just because they are 6 by 6, if you look, there's a gap at the top and at the bottom, so it's not going to cover the entire card front. So if you want it to cover the entire card front, you just keep continuing the pattern on the way down. So that was easy. So I did, this is, the background is 1 layer, so I did that in the back, glued these pieces on, and then I used this Merry Die from Simon Says, oh, I'm sorry, this is from MFT, and this, I believe this might have also been it was either free with 60 or I got this one on sale from one of the sales that they did. And there's a bunch of Christmas words in it. However, this is a pop-up one. So if you cut the letters out, if you notice, let's see on the bottom, there's no cut line on the bottom of it. So it kind of just scores it. And what happens is the letters will pop up off the paper. So if you do it on the inside, the word will actually kind of like pop up off of the paper. So I took it to my trimmer and then trimmed the edges down. I used the negative space and spaced it out on here and then glued the letters down on here. I also used a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see a little, there you go, a little bit of that shine on there. I didn't want to use the red one because it was too red. I probably should have used a little bit of a more orangey red paper on here, but this is what I had on my desk and that's what I went with. So sometimes you just kind of have to use the supplies that you have and make them work. But I wanted to show you guys that you can use the same, basically the same color palette, same sketch, and come up with two completely different designs. This one is a little bit more formal and this one is a little bit more playful, cartoony with the images versus the letters. So two different designs, same sketch. So hopefully the next video I will actually be able to film what I did and have it upload correctly, hopefully in editing. And then we'll be able to walk through the process on how to create another set of cards like this. Let me know if you guys like this new view, and hopefully I can get it to work a little bit better for me and for us. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below or comment in the, or send me a private message. And I will see you guys again real soon for another crafty video. Bye!